Good evening. I'm Glenda Carr, co-founder, president, and CEO of Higher Heights for America, and welcome. So don't worry, I look like I'm on a delay because I'm on a delay. I'm on my old computer tonight, but welcome to hashtag Black Women Lead Political Leadership Webinar Series, and thank you for joining us. Y'all were prompt. Y'all been on since 7 o'clock, or some of you were before 7 o'clock. So thanks for joining the first in the series of conversations for the spring series. And today, I can tell you I need this session now more than ever, is finding clarity in the moment because I was fuzzy all day. I at least was able to put a lip on to make it, but y'all didn't get the full beat today. But Higher Heights for America is the political home for Black women, a place for us to be informed, engage, and to take action. And our training series is an opportunity for Black women across the country to find a little hour to invest in their personal and professional leadership development. And so we want you to tell us where you're from. So if you've logged on via the webinar, there is a chat room to your left, and it says attendee chat. So you can do two things. Tell us, Black Women Lead Roll Call, where are you logging in from? And for those who are just listening on the phone, you can text 646-206-5931, 646-206-5931. And that is also how you're going to be able to communicate tonight with our presenter, Rebecca Thompson. So she wants her full hour because she's got a full hour of really great information. As you know, when Rebecca and I initially talked about doing this in the beginning of the year, because as you know, we all set goals in the beginning of the year and we just weren't able to connect. And I always say there's a reason why things don't happen when they do, because they were supposed to happen during this time where we are practicing social distancing, and many of us have been in the house now for a full month. Some of us home alone, some of us with family members and children. So I know some of y'all are like, please let me get this little time to myself. But I think we've also set all these goals. You know, I'm gonna work out every day during the quarantine. I'm gonna write a book. I'm gonna journal. I've done none of those things. I haven't even cleaned the house. So I think just pausing to figure out kind of to be quiet in the moment to hear clarity is an important, I think, kickoff to our spring series. So I'm excited to introduce your trainer tonight. Of course, I'm having all types of technology problems. So here's a website and I can't pull up her bio. But we were saying we've known each other for a very, very, very long time. And she is originally, I'll tell you all the things I know. She's my friend. She is smart. She is kind, and she's important. What movie is that from? But she's from Detroit. She's an activist. I've recently, she's a twin. She loves her dog. And more importantly, she's been on a journey in her own professional and personal growth. And what has led her to launching her own series around clarity. So she's a clarity coach, particularly working with high-achieving Black women, and that is you. And the definition of a high-achieving Black woman is every Black woman is a high-achieving Black woman. So I look forward to this workshop tonight. I have my book. It's called Today is Today, and it is actually where I've been doing my kind of journaling and planning for the year. So, Rebecca, thank you for joining us tonight, and thank you for sharing a little bit about how we can use this moment while we're practicing social distancing to find clarity.
Thank you so much, Glenda. I am so excited to be here. I think my video just went out. Can you all see me?
Good. Yep.
Okay. So first, I just want to say thank you for slowing down long enough to give yourself permission to be here tonight. I think somehow a month ago, people assumed that working from home meant free time. And I think some of you may affirm that that is not the case. And you have found that you still have the same 24 hours However, we are not functioning the same because nothing is the same. So I just want to say thank you for joining us tonight. As Glenda mentioned, there is a little bit of a delay, so I'm going to apologize in advance. And I'm going to just ask that you send, since I can't see any of you, and I am an introvert / empath, I need the energy that you all have to sort of keep me going right now. So if you can use the chat box to, if something that I say resonates with you, if you have an aha moment, if you have a moment of clarity, go ahead and put it in the chat box. And that way I will know that you all are there. Also, if you have questions, please feel free to share them. And I have a number of folks that I just want to say hello to. Both of my team members, Kofi and Lonnie, are here. They're going to help field questions as well. So if there's something that is like really important and you want to make sure that I pause, just go ahead and put a question in the chat box and they'll let me know. And then also, I just want to say, I want to give a special shout out to all of the familiar faces that I see here. Particularly the folks who have been or are in the Live In Your Light Bootcamp. So Nicole Atkins from Oak Park, hello. Who else? Erica Savage Wilson, hello, love. It's so nice to see you. Harsana from Detroit, hello. I love seeing you. Kimberly Letts as well, greetings from Atlanta. So I just wanted to say, I get to spend a lot of time with these ladies, and so I appreciate them giving me more of their time. So hello, ladies, and I miss you all, and I'm excited to see you all next week. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and share my screen, and we are going to get started. Okay. All right. Let's see if this works. Okay. All right. So I will also mention that as of right now, I can't see the chat box. So Kofi / Glenda, I'm going to turn my phone off, do not disturb, so that way you can text me because I will have no idea what's happening. So I'm just going to keep talking. I can't see anybody, so this is going to be really me winging it, okay? Awesome. All right, so welcome to tonight's session, Finding Clarity in Crisis and Beyond. This is a brand new masterclass. I had a clarity course. Some of you may remember that in December of last year, I launched a clarity course that was really powerful. My team and I decided that we would only launch that once a year. We were just going to do it in December. And unfortunately, with all of this happening, we were like, no, we got to push this up. And so this idea that I'd already created a clarity course, but what I realized is I couldn't just take content from December and then share it with you right now, right? Because even though it could be the same information, I needed to go back to the drawing board. So I've spent, since Glenda asked me to do this session, I literally have been collecting ideas specifically for you all. So some of this might be familiar for some of the women in the Live In Your Light Bootcamp or some of our alum. Some of this may be new for you. So again, if any of it resonates with you, take what works, leave what doesn't. I will share a bit about my own journey and how I am both struggling in this pandemic and thriving at the same time. And so what I really want to give you the opportunity to learn about tonight is how there is still a way for you to thrive despite the fact that we're in a pandemic, okay? And I know that sounds really challenging for some folks right now, right? But the things that we're going to talk about tonight are going to help you understand how that can be possible, okay? So get some water, drink some wine, I want you to put on some tea, whatever you need to do so where you are relaxed during this session. This is for the next 45 minutes. Okay, for the next 45 minutes, this is your time where, as high-achieving Black women who are literally always, we are on the front line of everything, right? That this is our opportunity to pour into you, okay? So we just ask that you, if you got, put on your robe, put on your bonnet, whatever you got to do, just get comfortable and cozy. Go ahead and do that. I also want you to silence or mute any distractions. So that might mean go somewhere quiet so that you can really retain everything that we're going to share. Or it might mean putting your cell phone on Do Not Disturb for the next 45 minutes. My cell phone, I pretty much keep my phone on Do Not Disturb because I'm always in creative mode, and I'm learning even in this time of being at home is I need that time to focus and pay attention to things. So give yourself permission for 45 minutes. If you can, I know that is a lot of time to ask, but if you can, I think you're going to get a lot out of this session. All right, so tonight you are going to learn how to listen to and trust your inner wisdom, AKA your intuition, to get clarity in your life. The magic answer is that clarity is not outside of you. It's inside of you, right? Which means that this is the best time of your life to be getting clarity, okay? So if there was ever a time, me and my friends in college used to joke that we were like always getting our shit together, you know? And I had a moment today where I was like, oh yeah, like I spent years getting my shit together, you know? And getting clarity and doing this work has been a part of that process, right? It is imperfect, but I trust my intuition to guide me during this crazy time, okay? You'll also learn how to transition from a life of doing and busyness to being in stillness, okay? And I literally just saw an article a moment ago that said that, I think it was in the Atlantic, that we may be, in some form of social distancing for the next 2 years. And when I think about what that means for people, what the possibility of what that means for people, if there was ever a time to stop doing shit just to be doing it, right, it's right now. And then lastly, we're going to talk about how to both survive and thrive during this pandemic, because I want to be very clear that as somebody who has been impacted by this, every single one of us have been touched by this in our own disastrous and unique ways. We are literally in survival mode, and we still have room to thrive, okay? So the way that I'm going to frame this conversation tonight is that I want you to have one foot in your current reality. One foot has to be in survival mode, okay? So I want you to think of this as your left foot, survival mode. The right foot is in your future. It is the life that is on the other side of this pandemic. It is the life that is 5 years, 10 years, whatever is on the other side of this for you, okay? So the way that I want you to think about this is that we have to think about both, because if you live here too long, you'll fry yourself out, right? And this is where a lot of us have been struggling in this pandemic. If you live here in La La Land, right, it is very difficult to function on a day-to-day basis, right? But if you're grounded in both, okay, that's what this session is going to be about. So I want to tell you a little bit about who I am and why I am a clarity coach and how this became my life's work. And the story really starts in 1997 on the east side of Detroit. So this is a picture of my identical twin sister, Rachel. And we went to Foch Middle School for all the Detroiters here. And while we were smiling in this picture, on the inside, we were struggling. The time that this picture was taken, we were living in a house with no running water, no lights sometimes, no heat a lot of the time, and no running water. And there were times when we would walk to school in the winter with no coat. And we were embarrassed of where we lived, and we didn't even tell people where we lived. We literally never brought friends to this house. So I learned at a very early age to pretend, okay? I learned at a very early age to get up, put on a smiling face, and go brave the world, okay? And, I can think back to elementary school, to times where school was my safe haven. It is why hearing all these kids who are out of school, my heart is breaking for them, because at school, right, I could just pretend like things at home were normal, and I could be whoever I wanted to be. And so because I was constantly living in survival mode, right, from the time I was about 14 years old, I started working. I got an internship for an elected official in Detroit, and it changed my life, and it put me on a trajectory and a path to politics that I got to help people, and I got to help people solve problems and help them through a crisis. But it also meant that I learned some skills that I took with me into adulthood that really should have stayed when I was in survival mode, but I never could understand when I was no longer in survival mode, okay? Fast forward, I fulfill a lifelong dream of running for state representative to represent the neighborhood that I grew up in. I ran in 2014, and I lost by just 6 votes on election day. And I was devastated. To say that I struggled with depression for at least 6 months to a year in a crippling depression is not an understatement. And I didn't know what I was supposed to do after losing that election. All of my friends went on to become state representatives. Now they're state senators. I have, I've seen my friends, especially in Michigan politics. Garland Gilchrist is a dear friend of mine. And so I thought, where am I supposed to be, Lord? I thought I was supposed to be in the Michigan legislature. And the universe had other plans for me. And I thought I would run again in a few years. And so that was my plan. And so 1 week after, I should say January of 2017, I quit my job. I sold everything I owned, and I bought a one-way ticket to Malaysia. I had an intention of spending 12 months in 12 countries, and literally a week after I got to Malaysia, the opponent that I ran against in 2014 was removed from office, and the seat was suddenly open. And here I was 10,000 miles away. And again, life had other plans. So here I am thinking I'm making all these plans, and life said, no way. I came back to the United States for what I thought was my dream job. And unfortunately, after a few weeks, my spirit knew that it was not, but I would not give myself permission to say that out loud. And after about 6 months, I decided that I was going to leap, and that I was going to get through the next election cycle, but that I was going to create a life that I did not need an escape from. And it meant not having a job. It meant being my own boss and getting to create the life of my dreams. And I will tell you that, over the last 3 years, and I think Glenda can attest to this, because when I moved to Malaysia, people told me I was crazy for building a political business online 3 years ago. And I remember begging people, right, to let me do virtual trainings and like, let me do all of these things. And people were like, ma'am, campaigns are won on the ground, right? And so in a way, it was because I trusted my intuition. That is the only reason why in 2020 I've created the life of my dreams despite the fact that I'm in a pandemic, okay? That's the kind of clarity that I want for you in this moment. You might get the clarity now, and it might take you a couple of years to manifest all of those desires that you have. So this is your opportunity to begin to start planting the seeds that will bear fruit later, okay? So I want to be very clear. I'm not about to sell y'all no magic beans. This is not no, get happy quick scheme. This is real work. This is long-term, deep investment. I have been on this path my entire life, but intentionally since 2015, 2016, okay? So I also I'm going to share with you, my journey and some insights from that, but I also want to be very clear that do not compare my journey to your journey. What I want you to take from this is what can you take that works? How do you leave the rest, right? Because I don't want anybody thinking that what I'm suggesting is you're going to get out of this pandemic and all of a sudden your life is going to be different. Your life becomes different because you make small, micro choices every day. Small choices that lead up to the life of your dreams, okay? And so clarity is what comes from stillness, okay? Oprah, who is my, I would say she is my best friend in my head, but I'm not sure if she would classify us like that. But alone time is when I distance myself from the voices of the world so I can hear my own. This has been one of my favorite quotes for a really long time because as somebody who has kept a journal since I was 12 years old, I've always learned that I needed to go inward, right? I'm an introvert. I'm an empath. I have a twin sister, so it meant that there was always somebody around. So I always knew that I had to give myself permission to just be still because the world was always very noisy, okay? So we're going to talk about 7 ways that you can find clarity in this crisis, okay? Number 7 is to silence distractions. There are so many distractions showing up in your life right now, okay? And distractions come in a lot of forms, okay? People, places, things, okay? So I want you to take out a notebook. If you don't have something to write with, pull it out. I'm going to be throwing at you a series of questions, okay? That's why I'm saying these are going to be journal prompts for you to think about tonight. These are going to be prompts for you to respond to later. And so just know that I'm planting the seeds, okay? So I don't think you're going to get clarity for your whole life in 45 minutes, although you might, but this will come over time, okay? So what distractions can you silence today to turn down the noise of the world, okay? So TV, social media, putting your phone on Do Not Disturb. Are you on a bunch of group texts, okay? So I want you to think about what are all of the voices that are being thrown at you right now. You've got, are you working, right? If yes, what does that look like for the noise that you have? Being home. Are you home with the children? What's the noise of your life right now? So take a moment to really think about what are the things that are distractions. And everything is a distraction if it's not about your survival at this point, okay? So, for some of you, you might have a boundary that says anything that happens outside of this house is a distraction, right? Or, anything that happens outside of these boundaries. So for me, I've turned off the TV, right? I have at many points just gotten off of social media. It was literally too much for me. Right as the COVID crisis began, as I had been exposed to the virus and had taken a test, I spent a week in deep meditation. And I had never done that before. I'm talking almost a silent retreat for a week at home because I was like, Lord Jesus, If this thing is about to take me out of here, I want to be clear as a mofo. And so I turned off everything and everybody. And I'm talking everybody, okay? And that meant making some really tough choices. It meant who gets to stay. If I'm literally that 6-day waiting period of waiting for those results, and they came back negative. However, I was told when I took the test, it doesn't matter because you've been exposed, so you have to quarantine anyway. So they also have said people who have negative test results can still have it. So who knows? But again, when it comes down to this pandemic literally taking people out like that, young people, healthy people, right? There is nobody who has been spared from this. This is the time for you to turn off the distractions, okay? Take a moment, think about all of those things right now that you really need to just silence and turn off today, tomorrow. All right. What routines, habits, or rituals can you put into place to incorporate stillness and silence into your day? When will you make time to do this? So, for example, I have been waking up every morning at 7 a.m. I am usually, since I'm my own boss, I like to sleep in late. I take my time when I wake up. But Donnie has been waking up on the nose at 7 a.m. every morning. And I kept saying, oh, well, Donnie, don't wake me up. I'm so sleepy. And then I said, what if I just set my alarm and woke up when he woke up? And then if I need to go back to sleep later, I can. So now I wake up at 7 a.m. I have a bedtime, right? I have a meditation practice. You have to plan this like you are planning your day, okay? So it means that I have everything. I have specific timers on my phone because I have nap time. Like, I've literally turned into kindergarten Rebecca. I've always loved naps. Anybody who knows me knows I've always scheduled naps as a part of my day. So, again, not much about my day has changed, but a lot has changed about my day. So, what can you put in place? Is it a bedtime? Is it a wake-up time? Is it a meditation time? Are you doing the things like yoga or your breath work or running? Like, what are the things that you're doing that allow you to be still with yourself, okay? And when are you going to make time for it? And if you need to, put it on your calendar right now, okay? So I have a mantra that if it's not on my calendar, it's not real, okay? And that is not about, my life being about work. It is, I prioritize what's important. And my calendar is, and I kid you not, I don't know if you'll be able to see it. My calendar has been pretty light these last couple of weeks, so there might not be anything on here. But anyways, my calendar is color-coded by energy, right? So, for example, things that require a lot of energy of me are in red. So, for example, before the pandemic, if I needed to travel somewhere, I could look at my week and see, okay, I'm just going to be traveling all week. I need to get my mind right? And so putting things on my calendar, not just to tell me that it's happening, but to help me understand how I need to show up. So I can look at my day and say, okay, I normally might take a nap mid-day, but I have this thing where I really need to schedule this time. So during this time, your self-care is, I travel a lot, and I would always hear the put your own oxygen mask on first. Luckily, I've never been in a plane emergency, but this is like literal ass, put your own oxygen mask on first, okay? So you got to plan for it and put it on your calendar. So if you are interested in a deeper dive into stillness and this idea of what it means to pause in a really noisy world, this is one of my favorite books. And I think particularly for any of you who are also travelers, there is something that we have learned, when you've got to be in, I can think about, experiences that I've had where I was alone by myself with my thoughts in, some of the most remote developing countries. and it was the most peaceful place. That's the place I'm tapping into during this pandemic, right? That is that well of stillness. It really feels like it's been a well of stillness that I've been building up for years because, again, as an introvert, as somebody who has always felt things deeply, this is my happy place. So this will give you some more insights and some more tools to help you on your journey. It is an act of bravery to feel your feelings. Gail Foreman. Number 6, y'all, during this pandemic, you have to give yourself permission to feel your feelings. So I want to take a moment to just acknowledge that we are in a global moment of collective mourning, okay? So think about where you were when you found out Kobe Bryant passed away, right? That reverberation that I felt like I physically felt it, like the world stopped, right? That is, I didn't know what that sort of felt like. I was like, holy crap. I had all these memories of Kobe Bryant, mostly from Moesha, right? I had all these things, like I have an attachment to him that I was like, how do I feel like this about somebody I've never met before? That grief. There were a series of other real life things that were happening before this pandemic, right? I had a family emergency that has devastated my family that happened in January, and a series of health crises in February and March, right? I was in a stage of grief and loss and mourning before this, and likely many of you were as well, okay? So now you compound that grief and that loss. We have to acknowledge that we are going to be in each of these different stages of grief every day, all day. This is not a linear process. It is okay which is when people ask me how I'm doing, I say I am both really struggling and thriving, and everything in between, every day, right? And so I used to not allow myself to feel those feelings, okay? And we're going to talk about that in a moment. But I want you to just acknowledge that, the different stages of grief, and this is just a few of them. There are other manifestations of this. But I want you to take a moment to just see where you are, right? So, and put it in the chat box. I can't see anything that you all are typing, but I think once this is over, I'll be able to see those notes. And I think maybe, Glinda, you're the only one who can see them right now, but take a look at this and just put in the chat box, where are you, right? Which stage of grief are you in this moment? Not today, because maybe you were somewhere else, earlier, but what stage of grief are you in at this moment? And there's a lot of emotions. There's like, none of us have ever lived through anything like this. And as someone who is a nerd, right? I'm talking. So if you're a nerd, like this feels like our season. So I have lots of nerd things that I want to just nerd out with people about. So if you want to be, nerdy about metaphysics and the universe and all sorts of things, I'm using this time of grief and loss to just feel my feelings, but to read, to do all sorts of things, right? So I'm giving myself permission to feel that full spectrum of them. So type in the chat box where you are, what feelings are coming up for you in this moment. Glinda says anger, right? I will tell you, Glinda also says depression. A friend of mine, Marlo Staudemeyer, passed away. I think he was the first loss that I experienced, COVID-19, and I was absolutely in shock. Let me see, Glinda sent me something else. Overwhelmed, anxious, acceptance, right? So there's this song that I play, because Big Sean is also from Detroit. He's my friend in my head. He's my cousin in my head, actually. But he has a song called The Light. And every time I play it every morning, and every time I play it, I think about Marlo, So, and he talks about, they could take away my life, but they can't take away my light. And that's what I think. Like, so when I think about Marlo, he's here, right? But I'm really fucking angry that Marlo isn't here. He was 43, 44, no underlying health conditions. I'm really fucking angry that my friend is dead, you know? So I am feeling all of that. And that is just from one loss, right? So I want you to take a moment to just reflect on what are all the things you're grieving? And grief isn't just death. Loss isn't just about death. If you've lost a job, if you've lost a relationship, friendships, your home, your life as you know it, your routines, your habits, what are you grieving? And what have you lost? And as we move forward in this season, right, beyond this pandemic, the life that we knew no longer exists. Linda says that she is dealing with several losses. She's angry but bargaining, right? And this is why we have to be in community with other people, right? Because when we get to that place of acceptance, we can say, okay, Marlo is still with me, right? He is. I have all these memories. I have all these text messages. Oh, you know what? Glenda said these are not from her. These are from people in the chat box. Oh, great. Thank you for the clarification. I appreciate that. Well, I'm glad I've been reading them. Oh, Glenda said, tell folks they can also text to 646-206-5931. Okay. Thank you for clarifying that. So as you can see, we're feeling a lot of emotions. So I want you to, but acknowledging the loss, right, and allowing yourself to feel the feelings that are going to come up, okay? Okay, so let's keep going. Sit down, Donald. My dog, Donald Hathaway, always wants to be on my webinar, and he can't come tonight because we don't have that much time. So we're feeling our feelings, okay? What do you need to give yourself permission to feel, experience, say, do, or most importantly, not do right now? Okay? So we're feeling our feelings, and we're being still. What are we letting go of? What are we giving ourselves permission to feel? And so if you can type that in the chat box as well. And what do you need to give yourself permission to just not do? I looked at my calendar weeks ago and stopped track. Like I literally turned off. I stopped taking in-person meetings weeks ago, right? Before the pandemic, because I realized like I don't even like people anyway, right? So, but there is still something about being not able to leave your house because you legally can't, right? That is very different. And I needed to give myself permission to both be excited as an introvert that I have all this time at home and really frustrated because I miss fucking traveling. I struggle from wanderlust, y'all, right? Somebody said you are grieving lost time that you'll never get back. That's exactly right. We will never get this time back. And, you know, in the same way pre-9/11, September 10th, the world looked one way, September 11th and beyond it looked different, right? So I want you also to acknowledge that it's okay to feel what you're feeling, even though people will try to tell you, oh, you know, you should be lucky, oh, you should be happy, oh, you should be grateful, right? Somebody said they're tired and scared. Ask yourself, how are you coping, okay? If you are like me, Trains in the Sky might be on your playlist. And there are many seasons of my life where I was eating it away, drinking it away, reading it away, sexing it away, traveling it away, right? Because that was all in an effort to not feel my damn feelings. And I thought, I'm going to go find myself in Thailand. She going to be great, right? I get there. That shit was crazy. It was awesome and amazing. And I had, the most amazing experiences. You can't outrun yourself, okay? Somebody says they needed to let go of frustration and anger of the lost control. Absolutely. And I have been, I would not say that I'm a Buddhist, but I would say I've definitely been adopting Buddhist practices in addition to my Christianity and spiritual practices. And I will say that this idea that, how to cope in this moment, it's changing everything, right? It is absolutely changing everything, including my sense of I was already in recovery from being a control freak, but it reminds me that we are not in control. There is nothing that is permanent. So I'm like taking everything that I learned from my travels, particularly as it relates to my spiritual practices, to cope. But how are you coping? Are your coping mechanisms healthy? Okay. Examples of healthy coping skills are exercising, journaling, drawing, taking a bath. I have literally been I have a 2-bedroom, 2-bath apartment, and so I've been saying one bathroom is for showers, and the other bathroom is my spa, where I light candles every time I take a bath. I put Epsom salt, I put essential oils, I light incense. Like, it's an experience every night. That's how I'm coping, right? Somebody says, I'm giving myself permission to feel confusion and uncertainty right now as I travel inward. Absolutely. So how are you coping? What are you doing to feel this? And, I want to be very clear that I'm not about toxic positivity. So if you need to drink right now, if you need to, listen, I have a medical cannabis card from the state of Maryland. If you need to get high right now, do what you need to do to survive, okay? No judgments here. However, right, this is not the time to be harmful to ourselves, okay? Because I will tell you, through my 20s and most of my 30s, most of my coping mechanisms were directed at myself, right? And sometimes I was spilling and bleeding all over other people, hurting other people, okay? So, it is okay to sometimes, like, listen, I've been day drinking every day, right? But I've also been drinking a lot of water, okay? So I say, give yourself permission to cope however you need to, without judgment of yourself and others, right? But I also want to make sure that you are leaning into healthy coping mechanisms. Somebody said, this opportunity is helping me cope. So grateful for you offering this segment. You are so welcome. I'm so glad. Okay. Also, we're talking about feeling our feelings. Who will you lean on or reach out to ensure that you have a safe space to process your emotions? This is, I have struggled with anxiety and depression for a majority of my life. And when I tell you, just like everybody else, I've been sitting around trying to figure out what bills I'm going to pay. I was like, I'm paying this health insurance because I know what a fucking privilege it is to have access to it right now, right? I know what a privilege it is to have access to my mental health medications and access to my virtual therapist. That is a fucking privilege, right? So this is too much for us to cope with under normal circumstances. Things are not normal, okay? So if you have the privilege of access to health insurance, this is the time to dust off that virtual therapy or whatever the site. I have, in the past year, I've had a virtual therapist and a virtual psychiatrist, and they were both Black women. And this is the time for professional help, okay, if you have access to it. If you do not, okay, or if you know people if you have the privilege but know people who do not, Taraji P. Henson just launched a virtual campaign to raise money that will go toward culturally competent, licensed clinical therapists for underrepresented communities who have been impacted by COVID-19, which is everybody, right? And so because there are so many people of color, particularly in places like my hometown of Detroit, who do not always have access to, who don't have access to these kinds of services and resources. She is both raising money for this, so if you want to sign up for it for yourself or others, please feel free to do that. And also, this is not the time to be calling people crazy, right? We are all losing our minds right now because this is a lot. And so, for those of you who spend a lot of time on your physical health or your financial health or your emotional health, right, this is the season, right, to acknowledge that we were not meant to do this by ourselves. And there are people who can literally help you see your trauma and begin to heal from it. This is a global pandemic traumatic experience that we're all having at the same time. And it will take us generations to unfeel and recover from. Okay? Albert Einstein says we cannot solve our problems with the same thinking that we use to create them. I want to just ask Glenda, we have about 10 minutes left, and I have more content and more energy. So I'm happy to give it, but I recognize that we committed to 1 hour. So I just want to ask for permission. Is there anybody, one, Glenda, can we stay longer? And if so, how much time do we have? And then two, is do people want to keep going? Because if you don't, if you're tired and you just need to hop off, feel free to do that, and I'm sure we can get you the recording. But I like to work when I have energy and not work when I don't. So Glenda, if you could just send me a text and let me know if it's okay for us to keep going.
So I'm back on screen. So
okay, let me stop sharing.
You got people saying yes. I am happy.
Oh, good.
Done as you can. So yes, I'm happy to keep going. Yes. So I would say exactly what you offered, which is keep going, and if you have to drop off. We'll make this recording available. Yeah, people are still going, yes, keep going. Yes, okay. So the Black women roll call has spoke. So I should say if this is, they keep going, bring it, sis. So, yes, I'm happy to keep going. Okay, we got you. The other thing you can do is if you are enjoying this, share on your social media and let people know, what you've learned. Like, this can't just be the nuggets we're enjoying here. Please share and just tag #BlackWomenLead at Higher Heights. And Rebecca, you're not on Twitter, but you're on Instagram. What's your Instagram?
I'm on Instagram. Yes, go live in your light on Instagram.
All right, I'm going back off, and she resumes.
Thank you. Okay, great. That makes me so happy. Okay, I'm going to share my screen again. And we're going to keep going. Okay, thank you all for allowing me this extra time. Okay. All right. Okay, so we cannot solve our problems with the same thinking that we use to create them. Number 5 is you got to make over your mindset. This is inner warfare, as my mother would say. So I was telling Glenda earlier, this whole last month and even longer, I feel like I've been channeling, I've turned into my grandmothers, like versions of all of them. Like I'm like channeling Marie Harris in St. Louis and Marie Hurt Harris in Detroit. And literally all these things are coming back because I'm shifting the way that I'm thinking about things, and my survival skills are kicking in, right? So this inner warfare, I used to hear my grandmothers and my mother talk about spiritual warfare, and I didn't understand what they were talking about, right? They were believers. They were, very spiritual and religious people. And now everything that they said is coming back to me now because they were preparing us. And I've been also doing a lot of work around ancestral healing. I am my family's historian and genealogist. And I have a hobby of genealogy. So if you also love genealogy and want to nerd out with me, particularly Black genealogy, let me know. Glenda says my grandmother's name was Marie. So Marie is here. She's joining us, girl. But the ancestors were preparing us, right? Think about the conversations that your mother and grandmothers and grandfathers and aunts and uncles and cousins, think about the seeds that have been planted into you your entire life, right? And it may not have made sense at the time, but that inner wisdom that I've also been hearing and trusting and leaning on is the voice of my ancestors, because I know some of this insight is not coming from me, right? Particularly, and I should say, this is not about always doing things differently. It is about being different. And so you don't announce, I'm about to make over my mindset, right? No, you just do it. Like, these are changes that you do, and people begin to see the changes in your life, okay? So when it comes to pursuing your dreams of blank, this could be starting or pivoting your business, leaving a job, career, or relationship or city that no longer lights you up. What are your existing limiting beliefs about your reality? And I'm going to brag about Lonnie for a moment. So for those of you who I work with, you know that I have a really amazing team of fierce Black women who are also small business owners. And now they are both in Texas. And so Kofi is in Dallas-Fort Worth, and Lonnie literally during this pandemic decided that she wanted to chase her dream of becoming a life coach and leaving Chicago and getting her own place. And in the last month, this young lady, who is also an alum of Northern Michigan University, I'm a proud alum as well, but she just moved to Houston during a pandemic, brand new apartment with a pool and just this beautiful life that she is building for herself, even in a fucking pandemic, right? That requires some mindset shift to say, this is an opportunity for me, right? Now, your opportunity looks different than anybody else's, okay? Which is why I started off by saying we are not comparing ourselves to other people. What we are doing, it's not about comparison, it is, Lonnie is inspiring me. I'm like, damn, moving across the country is hard enough, right? Doing it during the pandemic is even harder, but it's also really fucking brave. And I said to her, so we were quarantining together. The first two, so I mentioned that our team got exposed to COVID-19 in the first week of March. We I hosted a staff retreat. We rented an Airbnb. We did a team photo shoot. We basically had a 2-day slumber party. It was really amazing. We did Painting with a Twist, and we were exposing the shit out of each other with COVID-19 unknowingly, right? And then I traveled to another client meeting with another group of people who were likely infected. So we were just sort of all over the place. But I say that to say that Lonnie and I, the first 2 weeks of this, she came here, bought a $45 plane ticket to quarantine for the first 2 weeks. And we spent 2 weeks. I was in that first week, when I was in deep meditation, Lonnie was in my guest room, also in deep meditation and prayer, and like literally we did a quarantine / spiritual retreat, okay? And I use her as an example because the world is literally on fire right now, right? And yet you can still make decisions that will radically transform your life. Do not use this pandemic as an excuse to why you have to be doing anything that you're doing right now. There are no fucking rules. And I'm gonna just, now that we've transitioned, I tend to cuss. I'm not gonna just start dropping F-bombs, but we're gonna get even more. We're going a level deeper here, okay? Because there is that survival mechanism in your brain is also trying to keep you safe. So it is trying to prevent you from making life-changing decisions right now, right? But this is the best time. This is the best time, and it's the hardest time. And both of those can be true at the same time. But do not let the excuse of this pandemic be the reason why you couldn't do something. Now, there are some legit things that you cannot do to this, because of this pandemic, okay? But do not use that as an excuse. So the excuse is a limiting belief, okay? So take a moment to write down what are some limiting beliefs that you have when it comes to pursuing your dreams, right? Are you feeling like things are on hold? Are you feeling like you can't make progress? Are you feeling like, I have been saying to each of my clients, and y'all can vouch for me because y'all know I be saying this, every single one of you on this call, your gifts and your skills are in demand in a way they've never been before, okay? And that is because each of you are uniquely gifted with a thing, right? With a talent, a skill, whatever it might be, right? And if you don't do that thing, it'll never be done. but you get to decide. It is your belief system that helps you determine if those things manifest into the world, okay? So take a moment to identify what those limiting beliefs are. And the way that we counter limiting beliefs is that we use affirmations. So Oprah says that the two words, I am, are the most powerful words in the universe. And anything that comes after those two words is coming for you. So it means that, if I'm a powerful manifester, right? I have been speaking things into existence since I was a little tiny child. However, we often speak negative things into existence. So many things that I've spoken into existence have manifested. There are a lot of them that have not. So somebody said constant criticism for not staying in my place at work. See, listen, right? It's bringing up situational leadership, right? Some of you are finding in your workplaces, in your families, in your communities, like some of you are seeing like people just don't know what to do. So you're stepping up, you're offering solutions, you're offering ideas, and that is what happens when we are in places that are helping other people build their things, right? And so while everybody is not supposed to be an entrepreneur, Black women are the fastest growing segment of entrepreneurs for a reason, okay? I will tell you, my ancestors have been preparing me for years, right? Because I struggled. I was a terrible employee. I struggled at work. I did my job. I never not did my job, but I was a terrible employee. So some of you are terrible employees. Some of you, don't really want to work with people, for people, and you have a job because you need it, right? But that bumping up against, somebody's saying you're out of place, you're never out of place. You've outgrown that place. They are hiring even in a pandemic, okay? People are hiring and starting new jobs at every level of government, in every sector, despite this pandemic, okay? So again, the only thing that shifts your reality is your thinking. We can't change anything about what's happening outside, but we can change our thinking. And with new eyes, you see everything around you as an opportunity as opposed to an obstacle, okay? So somebody said, I felt that I've been treading water, stagnant, not able to move for such a long time. Glenda mentioned it kind of at the beginning of this when she said something to the effect of, the reason why we hadn't done this session yet is because we needed to do it right now. The reason why some of you haven't made changes is because you needed this. You needed this moment. You needed this moment of stillness. You needed this. So I want you to acknowledge, I don't care what you've done from this moment forward. My computer's about to die. Let me make sure. Make sure it doesn't die on you all. Hang on 1 second. All right, Donnie, I know that you have to go to the bathroom, buddy, but you gotta wait. And you can say hi to the people later, okay? All right, well, one moment. Donnie would like to say hello. Donnie Hathaway is my favorite pup. He and I have been on this. Here you go, pup. Come here. All right, everybody. Say hi to Donnie Hathaway. Hi, Donnie. I've had Donnie since he was 8 weeks old, and he is 6 years old. And I will tell you that getting this dog was one of the best decisions I ever made, because in this pandemic, being able to, one, not be physically alone, but two, the emotional support. And it has been such a joy. So many of you are probably thinking about getting a dog, and you might have been on the fence. For some people it's not a good idea, but for others it might be the thing that really helps save you. So Donnie literally forces me to get out of bed every single day, several times a day. And so when I'm in the throes of my depression, I literally have no choice but to get up, right? Okay, so if you want a deeper dive into that inner battle, right? So in the Live in Your Light Bootcamp, we do a whole session, a whole module on making over your mindset and the war of art. And actually what I'm sharing with you all tonight is a lot of what I share in the boot camp. Clearly, we're spending, an hour or two together. We spend 3 months together. So what I'm trying to condense for you all is like some of my good, some of my best stuff. So these are the exact same books that we read that are in the boot camp. And so The War of Art, Break Through the Blocks and Win Your Inner Creative Battles by Stephen Pressfield is one of my favorite books. And it talks a lot about resistance. And so what somebody mentioned about, let me go back to the comment. He's saying, I felt that I've been treading water, stagnant, not able to move for such a long time. That is resistance, right? And as my mother would say, that's the devil, right? There's a lot of words that people use for it, but it is that thing that is really just trying to keep you safe, and your brain doesn't really know the difference between the two. So that inner battle, anytime you are starting anything new, pursuing something else, the list is very long. So it's one of my favorites. I hope that you will check it out. Somebody also said constantly having my ideas and suggestions taken without credit. I will tell you that is something that is pervasive when it comes to Black women, because as Zora Neale Hurston said, we are the mules of the world, right? People build millions and billions of dollars off of the backs of our ideas, right? Again, it's why you're going to hear me say entrepreneurship may not be for everybody, but I'm going to tell you what, you're not going to take my fucking ideas, right? So entrepreneurship is an answer. It is not the answer, but it is an anecdote to that, right? Because your ideas, when you are a small business owner, you get to bring them to life. And I have to say this, even though, there's a Jhené Aiko song where she's like, I'm not bossy, I'm the boss. And I love playing that because I am. But I don't just make unilateral decisions, right? Even in my own company. So I have a team of people, and we literally have an ideas Slack channel, because I always have ideas. And Kofi and sometimes Lonnie will say, no, don't do that. This class is a perfect example. And Kofi, I'm telling the truth. I was like making a whole workbook for stuff. And Kofi was like, girl, if you don't sit down and stop doing that. So I say that to say that it isn't about making unilateral decisions. But anyway, I got on a tangent. I'm going to come back. So all right, the next tip, or I should say as we go into our next tip, be the lighthouse, not the electricity. Tip number 4, stop giving away your light. So bring out your notebook. I want you to write down the names of the people, and this includes partners, spouses, friends, families, you name it, who you have found yourself pouring into on a consistent basis, emotionally, spiritually, physically, or financially during this crisis, okay? So think of this as, who have you been checking on? Have you been physically visiting people, which I hope you are not? Who have you been, video chatting with and setting, like real time and energy to care on, love on. And, this can be your children or the people in your immediate household, but I want you to think beyond those parameters, right? But who are the people that you have been giving a lot of your energy to? And I want to be really mindful here about, our energy is our life currency, right? It's our life currency. Now I want you to write down the names of the people who consistently pour into you, right? So who are the people over the last month and before, okay? The month and before, yeah, but for doggone sure in the last month, who has checked on you? Who has reached out to you? And I have, my friend Nadia, who is a colleague, more like a big sister now, especially as I was awaiting my results, she would be like, ma'am, we had an agreement where, I had a short list of people that I was talking to, including my twin sister and my therapist, and Nadia would be like, are you good? Every day, right? checking in. Biddy, I need to lay eyes on you, right? And that is a pattern that Nadia has done that since I've known her. But she has especially done it during this time. And so the people who tend to be the strong friends and who are always checking on everybody and loving on everybody, we also tend to do that because we really want to just get that in return, right? We give in the hope. We don't do it as a condition, but we do it in hope that that same energy will come back to us. But after you spend a week in deep meditation and prayer and reflection and revelation, and your phone is on Do Not Disturb, when I would go back and look at those text messages, I would just say, okay, who checked on me today? They don't have to know that I'm awaiting a COVID-19 test result. It's a pandemic. Who's checking on me just in general? Which is why I didn't share it with people, because it was nobody's business, right? And I'm gonna be very transparent here, and I'm gonna say this because this is an important thing. This goes back to, we were struggling and in crisis in our lives before this pandemic, okay? So this is why it is important to see, okay, you're giving all of this energy away. It explains why you're exhausted, why you're depleted. You are likely struggling to get out of bed most days, or your sleep patterns are erratic, right? So all these things are happening because you're giving away all your light. You're giving away all of your energy, okay? So how can you begin to protect your energy moving forward? So I should especially say, as an empath, and for any of you who identify as an empath, this is an especially difficult time for you because we absorb other people's energies, feelings, emotions, and sometimes what you're feeling is not even your own, okay? So it's why you have to put a proverbial bubble of light, a shield of light around you, because everybody is on 1,000 right now, right? And so you've got to protect your energy. You know, it's funny because I use some of you may have enjoyed my stock photography today. I use a website called Create Her Stock. I set an intention a couple years ago to only use stock images of Black women. And the fact that there is a new gallery entitled A New Normal, right? And so, you know, I'm always like creating things and using images. And when I saw this today, I was like, right, this is happening, right? So, A New Normal. And so one of my other favorite books, I read about 100 to 200 books a year. So when you hear me say one of my favorite books, it's because I am a voracious reader and a nerd and a bookworm. I love books, and it is, again, it's been my coping mechanism for since I was a little kid. But this is at the top of my list. It's called Light is the New Black, A Guide to Answering Your Soul's Calling and Working Your Light by Rebecca Campbell. And it felt divine that her name was Rebecca, so I keep it next to my bed. And I also got this book from Nadia, so thank you. She gifted it to me, or suggested that I read it in 2018. And it is where the inspiration for Live in Your Light came from. I read this book and was like, oh my gosh, this was everything I needed to hear in this moment. And it helped spur the idea of Live in Your Light, which was born in January of 2019. Okay, so again, one of my favorites. You should check it out. We teach others about healthy boundaries by enforcing ours. Tip number 3, beware of energy vampires. Now, I'm going to be a little jokey for this section, but I'm also still being very serious, right? This is a time where people will use this crisis as a reason for toxic behavior, right? And some toxic behavior is unconscious. And so because you don't know who the vampires and the threats, are on the surface, it's why you have to trust your energy, right? You can't trust what people say or do. You have to trust their energy, because energy is the thing that doesn't lie, right? Once I describe this, you'll have a better sense of who I'm talking about. All right, that's the wrong slide. Okay, here we go. Beware, vampires do exist. Instead of sucking your blood, they suck the energy right out of you with a negative, draining conversation. How many of you have people who are calling you and they need to vent and they need somebody to hold space for them, and you are, you prepare to do that, and then it becomes a one-sided conversation where they are just venting or talking about negative stuff or something that they have been complaining about for whatever, and it is sucking the energy out of you, right? So energy vampires are people who, they mean well sometimes. We love them. And this is where we have to begin to protect our own energy. So signs that you have been hit by an emotional vampire, and I joke, in my family, I don't refer to them as emotional vampires. I refer to them sometimes as emotional drive-bys, right? Sometimes I feel like I've been hit by a truck. I had one of those emotional drive-bys. I don't know if my older sister is on this call right now, but me and my mother and my older sister had one of those conversations this morning. 10 a.m., I was just starting my day for real, my work day. And, what felt like a very emotional conversation. And I had to, it did not end well, but that is because my family has struggled with communicating with each other, right? I was exhausted after that conversation. And I literally took a nap, right, shortly after. And so I want to be mindful that emotional vampires, again, these are people that we love. So, I'm not thinking about vampires in a negative way, although I am, right? Because, I had to explain even to my sister, she woke me up from my nap. Those are things where I had to say to her, okay, let me set these parameters, right? And one of those things are, okay, we are sisters and we have other roles that we play. So let's use our work day to talk about these things, and then after this time, we can talk about those things, right? That is how you protect those boundaries, particularly, and again, I said that I would be vulnerable here. So again, things happen to you that you feel, right? But maybe somebody says, oh, that's not a big deal on the surface, right? But you were emotionally triggered, you had an emotional response. You might not feel seen or heard from these folks and from these experiences. You'll notice immediately, you could have been in a great mood and you start talking to them and instantly you feel heavy, the mood shifts, and they drain you, right? There is a woman that I know who every time I would see her, I loved her and I was friends with her. But I could not get over the fact that her energy was screaming at me every time I saw her, right? And it meant that I had to cut off that relationship because I didn't feel good when I was around them, right? So how do we protect ourselves and protect our energy? Is you have to ground yourself. And that's why I have meditation practices. So if you pray, if you do yoga, if you, do any physical activity, if you're in nature, like for me, I need to be able to know that, like, okay, am I having a good day today? And like, what am I feeling? Are these my emotions or these other people's, right? And so, because having a schedule during this whole pandemic has been really powerful, I mentioned I wake up at 7 a.m. and at 10 a.m. every day we have a virtual staff check-in. So we check in on Slack. I set an alarm, right? So that it's virtual, and we have been a virtual team for almost the past year. But it is our way of saying every day, right? So I also will text them and say, that means I'm not available or I may not respond before 10 a.m., right? For example, if I'm talking to friends or family, I won't respond until after 10 a.m. So I'm setting those boundaries because it's what I need to protect myself. Again, people, my mother has never understood remote work. Let me just say that, right? She has never fucking understood. When I lived in Detroit, this is also why I had to move. I mean, it's one of the many reasons why I moved. But they would just show up at my house and they were in my neighborhood, which I loved, right? I loved seeing my family. They work in the community, so they were always in my neighborhood. But they wouldn't understand that I would be in the middle of my work day. And they would be like, but you're working from home. And I'm like, yeah, I'm just working from home. It's not like I'm not working. So even with my family, I've had to put those parameters around my time, which are really boundaries. And you will need to be setting not just physical boundaries, but energetic boundaries, okay? I talked to my mother and my sister today, and they live across the street from each other. And they were hanging out at each other's house. And I was like, what are y'all doing? Do y'all have masks on? Why are y'all, I'm freaking out. And I had to remind myself, this is why I moved out. You don't have to tell me to not be around people right now because I want to be alive, right? And so here I am arguing with them about not wearing masks and not going outside. And I said, okay. So I've already set the physical boundary because the week that this pandemic and everything sort of shut down, I was supposed to be in Michigan. I had a plan to be in Michigan for a week, and I was going to be home with my family. What that might have looked like is me quarantining with my family. That would have been really, really difficult, right? So me setting the physical boundary of saying, no, I'm not going to Detroit during this crisis, because a lot of people have gone home because they're like, shit, I'm going to ride this storm out at home. I'm not going to, be somewhere else. But I do not have that luxury, right? So I've set the physical boundaries of being distant from my family and the energetic one, right? It means you're not, and this is like no exaggeration, it's like you're not messing with my chi. You're not. I have a piece that is beyond my own understanding sometimes. So when I have it, I'm not letting somebody ruin it, right? No matter who they are. And some people you are just going to have to eliminate contact with, right? Some of you have had ex-partners reaching out. People, as my therapist said, people are backtracking, I cannot tell you the number of text messages I have received from people during this, and the number of, it's only been one inappropriate pic, but somebody sent me a random dick pic. People are doing some wild stuff during this pandemic, y'all, okay? So I have had to block people. There is one person who I consider, I should just be very real. I've eliminated contact with a lot of people during this pandemic, and it is not all about them. A lot of it is about me, right? And so this one particular person is somebody that I dated. He was the first person I dated in D.C. Thank you, Kofi. Kofi said, wrap in 5 minutes. We're coming up on 1.5 hours. That is Kofi telling me to protect my energy, y'all, because I just be giving shit away. And she reminds me, stop giving all my energy away. So thank you, Kofi. Appreciate you, girl. So cut contact off with people. A book that has also changed my life is The Empath Survival Guide, Life Strategies for Sensitive People. It is a good read, even if you do not identify as an empath. But if this idea of protecting your energy resonates with you, check it out. Number 2, build healthy boundaries. And we've talked a little bit about this, so I'm going to breeze through to get through these last couple of slides. Boundaries are invisible lines or fences that protect us, okay? The physical boundaries of your home is a really great way to think about it. Again, most states have executive orders where you shouldn't even be going from house to house anyways, so you should be exerting both physical boundaries right now as well as emotional ones. But some examples that you might struggle with healthy boundaries is, you fail to speak up when mistreated. So if, when people take your ideas without credit, do you speak up for yourself, right? Do you acknowledge that you've been hurt and offended and, want them to acknowledge it? Do you give away too much of your time, energy, or money to others, right? A really great way of having a boundary is when Kofi and I began working together, she was like, yeah, my job is to protect your fucking calendar, right? This is my job, right? That is Kofi doing her job. Because I would just talk to y'all all night. I literally have done that at trainings before because I love this work so much. However, then I'm depleted for days and I'm sick and I have no energy, right? So, okay. You feel guilty when you dedicate time for yourself. You have been taken advantage of or for granted by other people. You might have toxic relationships and you expect people to anticipate your needs. So again, I'm going to breeze through these. I do have a book that I'm going to recommend at the end of this that sort of goes into all the different types of boundaries, because you need boundaries for yourself, at work, with your family, with your time, all of these things, right? We do not have time to go into them. But as you can see, depending on what those boundaries are, it will change your life. And I will tell you, starting January 1st, I began literally every day setting new intentions and boundaries, and everything about my life has changed in just 90 days. So an example that I do want to dig into, though, because we often think about our boundaries around other people as opposed to our boundaries for ourselves. And the way that I think of this is, what are the promises that you keep to yourself, right? What are the things that you say you're going to do for yourself that you don't? If you don't keep promises to yourself, how do you get offended when other people don't do the same, right? So this means having and sticking to a bedtime, deciding what time you're going to stop working, limiting screen time, creating and sticking to a budget, right? Having boundaries at work include, I'm not working past a certain time. I'm not working on weekends. I'm not comfortable talking about that. Or I'm not available or responsible for other people's work. If there was ever a time for people to have boundaries at work, it's right now, because those invisible boundaries are for people who do not have healthy boundaries. They are likely pushing all up against yours because they don't have them and they are losing their shit, right? Now is the time for you to have them. A reminder that givers need to set boundaries because takers rarely do. People will just take, not because they are bad people, but because it's a fucking pandemic, right? So a lot of ways to say no. No, it's a whole last sentence. I'm not even going to say anymore. No. If people ask you to do stuff that you don't want to do or don't have the energy to do, just say no. The deeper dive is boundaries. When to say yes, how to say no, and take control of your life. Also one of my favorites and has transformed so many of my relationships. And I also want to make a plug that one of my childhood dearest best friends, Nedra Tawwab, is also writing a book on boundaries that is written by a Black woman and will be the definitive book on boundaries for our generation. So I am so proud of her, and you should follow her on Instagram. She talks about boundaries as like the thing that she talks about on Instagram, and it's Nedra Tawwab. And we've been friends since 9th grade. She's also from the east side of Detroit, and you'll love her. And then lastly, as we wrap up, gratitude turns what we have into enough. Tip number 1 for getting clarity in the midst of this crisis is to create a daily gratitude practice. So I want you to reflect on what are 3 things that you are most grateful for right now. And start a gratitude jar or a journal or some way to keep track of this process every single day. Look for things to be grateful for as you go outside, as you walk your dog, as you're in the grocery store. Are you grateful that they have toilet tissue? I went to 2 stores the other day, could not find any. I have Kleenex, right? I'm going to use that if I run out, right? But are you just grateful that you found bleach or cleaning supplies, right? There's going to be so much that you can be grateful for in this season. And so for those of you who enjoyed this session, and also thank you for the extra 30 minutes, my team and I have been hard at work sort of dreaming up, like, what is the thing that we can create and sort of help Black women do in the next couple of days. And we are launching on Monday the Clarity Challenge. It is a 100% free 7-day email course to help you get the clarity to discover what to do when you have no idea where the fuck to start. And essentially, it is this masterclass broken up over 7 days. Each day, you'll get an email with an affirmation. You'll get a prompt, some journal exercises. So my team and I are going to be starting it on Monday, and I'm looking for 100 Black women across the country starting on Monday, April 20th, who want to do this Clarity Challenge with us. That means we're going to be going into meditation. It doesn't mean we're like not working or taking, time off. It just means that we're going to be spending a week intentionally going deep around clarity. And so there's going to be, so it's a free 7-day email course. You get daily affirmations, inspiration exercises. There will also be a private accountability community. If you just love being in spaces with other high achieving Black women like I do, I actually get my oxygen from Black women. If you want to be in this private community, I know there's a lot of shit that we're avoiding online, but this is going to be a safe space. I will also be popping into the challenge for videos and for Facebook Lives, because as I mentioned, our team will be doing it together. And so if you are interested in signing up, if you go to RebeccaMThompson.com/Clarity Challenge, for those of you who have done my 31-day mindset makeover, this is similar, but it's different. So if you've done the 31-day mindset makeover and you want to join us again, feel free to sign up. If you've never done a course or challenge with me, like I said, it's 100% free, and I would love to be in community with you all. And we are going to stop there, and I will just say this. If you have any questions that we were not able to get to tonight, actually, let me close out of here so I can see who is in here. Okay. First of all, there are people still here. Thank you. There are people here. Oh
yeah, no, people stayed. We only had a couple of folks that had to go.
Oh my gosh. Oh, I'm so glad. Thank you. I thought I was over here talking to myself. So, but I will give you my email address. And so if you have questions that we didn't get to, we'll happy to take some time this week to respond to them. But more importantly, I would encourage you to join the challenge, because that's where I will be answering questions. So, over the next, starting on Monday, over that course of 7 days, it'll be a place that I will be tapping into for inspiration and light. And so I encourage you all to join us. So, but just quickly, my email is Rebecca@RebeccaMThompson.com. And that's it for now. We're going to wrap up. Did you all find that helpful? Give me some feedback in the chat.
Who's signing up for the challenge?
Yes, and if you're signing up for the challenge, let me know. Awesome. Okay. Well, we're going to have a wonderful time. I've never done a clarity challenge like this before, so I think it will be awesome. There's a question. Let's see. Did you see that? Glenda, can you see where there's a question?
There's a question. Well, that's because they didn't, these we are chatty tonight.
Okay.
I don't think that's our question.
Okay, so Tyra Jones says, I missed the beginning, but I really enjoyed this. I just signed up for the challenge. I'm very excited. Tyra, I'm excited that you're going to be joining us. Can't wait to see you, girl. Annie says, I found this very affirming. Thank you. Anne Brown. Irene Neal says, I really appreciate this opportunity. Thank you again. KP says, awesome. Trisha Claxton, I hope I'm saying that right, says we'll be signing up. Georgia says, this was excellent. I needed this. I'm so glad to hear that.
There was a question to repeat where to sign up again.
Yes. Rebecca M. Thompson. Let me put the slide back. Oh, wait, I closed out of it. RebeccaMThompson.com/Clarity Challenge. I'm just pull it up here real quick to make sure that is it. Somebody said, how can we promote the challenge on social media? We're going to get you the tools to do that. If you sign up for the challenge, I will also make sure that you have tools to help promote it as well. So yeah, if you go to RebeccaMThompson.com/Clarity Challenge. Yes, that's it. And so what you'll do is you'll just sign up, and then you'll be on our list, and we'll send you information to promote the Clarity Challenge, as well as the link for the group and how to access all the resources. Wow. Constance says, hello, ladies. My name is Constance Jones, and as a state officer for Texas Coalition Black Caucus, I often find that there is not a lot of me time. Thank you, ladies, for the excellent self-help tips. You are so welcome, Constance. So welcome.
Well, thank you, ladies, for hanging in here for, it was really an hour and 15 because we talked in the beginning. So it was really you took your full hour and some, but exactly the right message and messenger which is what we seek to do with our hashtag Black Women Lead webinar series. A time for us to find a little corner in our house. Well, now just in our house. I used to say in our house, a cafe, a library, but in our house to sow and invest into our leadership, personally or professionally. So thank you so much for being a longtime Higher Heights supporter and advisor. And so we look forward to repeating this again, and we'll get this out to our community so that we can exceed your 100-person challenge. And again, you know, we all can grab one, bring one, and I think it is a great way. It's an email challenge, so it's a baby step into her 3-month boot camp. And so thank you for joining.
And it's not a Zoom meeting. It's not a Zoom meeting. I purposely said, what are we most tired of right now, ladies? Fucking Zoom meetings, right? Because we're doing them all day. And so this was my attempt to give you something that was bite-sized enough for you to, like, do when you're doing your journaling time.
Great. And so this is just one in the series of Black Women Lead webinars that are happening. Our next one is on Saturday, April 18th. It's actually a boot camp for women that are running for office, thinking about running for office, say they ain't gonna run for office, but should be running for office. But frankly, Black women are the defenders of our homes, our communities, and this democracy. So even if you are not running for office or not ever going to run for office like me, but I know we all have a role to play to ensure that we have a reflective democracy. And now more than ever, you've seen the women that have been leading us in crises and who will lead us through crises to higher heights have been Black women across this country. And so this boot camp actually is for also people who want to support candidates, may it be, being a staff member, a volunteer, a supporter, or a cheerleader. Come hang out with us. And we have literally 12 amazing Black women political operatives that will talk about how do we raise money in this time, how do we reimagining doing events during this time, and how do we reimagining that we are doing what we do is when we fire up a Black woman sheet, we don't go to the polls alone. We bring our house, our block, our church, and our sorority. So if you're interested in this or you know someone that should be on this boot camp, it is on Saturday. By signing up for this, many of you are already Higher Heights activist members or investor members, woo-woo. And if you are, if it's your first time being engaged, you are now a member of the hashtag Black Women Lead Nation. And so you'll be getting information about our upcoming events and ways to be engaged. And so thank you for joining us. Rebecca, did you have any last words?
Just RebeccaMThompson.com/Clarity Challenge. And for those of you who joined us tonight, I just want to say thank you for sharing your time with us. And I can't wait to see some of you all next week.
Great. Good night, all, and stay safe. And I know y'all are inside. Make sure that we continue to keep our communities inside and safe, because I know that we will thrive and survive when Black women lead. So thank you.
Good night, all. Bye.